I'll start with the TNA news this week because there was a big management shakeup on Tuesday. Per PW Insider, there were a number of exits from Anthem and TNA Wrestling on Tuesday. TNA President Carlos Silva issued a memo to Anthem staff announcing the departure of 8 people. One of the most shocking departures was Ariel Schnerer, who was executive producer of TNA and effectively the head of creative. Schnerer had been with Anthem, TNA, and the Fight Network for many years. With his departure, Hunter Johnston, the former Delirious from Ring of Honor, will now head creative, which he did in Ring of Honor for many years. I know Jim Cornette has been complimentary of him whenever he's asked about Delirious. They worked together when Cornette was there, and it's rare that Cornette doesn't have a bad word to say about somebody, or at least it feels that way. All I'll say on Delirious is that I did not enjoy Ring of Honor during his run as booker nearly as much as I did when Gabe Sapolsky was booking. Adam Pearce took over from Gabe after Gabe got fired, and then Pearce got fired not long after that. He had picked Delirious to be his assistant. So that's how Delirious ended up getting the job. When Pearce got fired, he slipped into the role. The same thing happened when they fired Cornette. It was supposed to be Cornette running things when they were kind of expanding, whatever year that would have been, 2011 maybe. And when he got canned, I forget, he was either fired or demoted to a lesser role, whatever it was. Guess who wound up as the head booker again? Delirious. The luck this guy has. Now here we are 15 years later, someone gets fired, and look who's waiting in the wings to take over as the head of creative. So he's got a mixed track record. Tommy Dreamer will remain on the creative team as well, but he'll also be heading up talent relations, because the other shocking departure was Gail Kim, former Knockouts champion, TNA Hall of Famer. She's been working behind the scenes in talent relations and as a producer. Gail's been with the company off and on for 20 years, all the way back to 2005. And she was one of the trailblazers of that Knockouts division. It was the matches that she had with Awesome Kong that helped put that division on the map. She's very well liked, very well respected among the people that worked there. Matt Hardy on his podcast said that he was shocked to learn about her firing. There may have been some very upset Knockouts venting their frustrations as well. Not even may have. I mean, they didn't mention her by name in their social media posts, but they've been posting angry emojis and whatnot. So clearly, a lot of very unhappy people about this news. They also vented their unhappiness after Scott D'Amore got fired, and in the end, nothing came from it. I doubt it's going to be any different this time. Rob Klingman, who was their chief revenue officer, is also gone, as is Michael Shukchenko, who worked in their digital department. He'll be departing TNA on April 30th, having worked there for 2 years. Karen Clevitt, who worked on their TNA Plus service, Romy Glazer, who worked in marketing, and Sebastian Dastrani, who worked on the live events and will also be leaving the company. Raphael Morphy, who had been doing consulting work for them and trying to build the company's live event business, was also announced as moving on. Now, Morphy previously worked for both WWE and AEW, and he is said to have been involved in the company's great success of late, including the big houses that they had in El Paso. I knew of Morphy from when he worked for the New York Cosmos soccer team. He was their main point of contact with MCU Park when I was doing PR work for the Brooklyn Cyclones. The Cosmos played some games at the ballpark for, I think, that one season. I didn't deal with him too much outside of some emails that we exchanged, but he seemed like a nice guy, clearly very competent at his job given all the places that he's worked. But unlike years ago when he actually worked there, this sounds like it was just the consulting role that he had. He'll simply just focus on the other work that he's doing. Although I don't know why you would want to lose somebody like that, especially when they seem to have been doing well on the live events end. But in a statement, Carlos Silva said, "Today we announced a restructuring resulting in staffing changes at TNA Wrestling. These decisions are always difficult, but it became apparent that we needed to make adjustments to our business strategies. We are grateful for those who have worked there or worked here and thank them for their years of dedication to the company. Finally, we want our fans to know that we are committed to producing the absolute best product and highest quality content that we can, and we appreciate their continued support." So in an update from Fightful Select, Sean Ross Sapp said on the subject of the Gail Kim firing, It was a unanimously unpopular move based on those we spoke to, with at least one talent saying that it made the decision for them to not remain in the company when their deal was up. At least one person said they actually weren't surprised because Gail has been very outspoken creatively and would sometimes butt heads with people in control. Another person indicated that the same thing was the case, but also said that's what you want out of a person in her position, somebody who will advocate for a better show. We're told that Kim was very direct about her complaints when she felt like things could have been handled better or more professionally. She was not involved in creative and had been pushing heavily for the Knockouts division to do more after the departure of Scott D'Amore. One longtime name in TNA said they believe Anthem is going for a major regime shift with the departures of Scott D'Amore, Gail Kim, and Josh Matthews, names that had been around for ages. They pointed to the revolving door at TNA of presidents and the differing visions between them. Those that we spoke to claimed the decision was TNA President Carlos Silva's, and he told Gail that she was fired but did not provide a reason besides changes. Sources in AEW and WWE both said that they expected Kim to get interest across the wrestling world, and a few said that they were going to immediately push for such. We're told that she does plan to continue in wrestling. Kim has no non-compete and can appear for any wrestling company she wants or work wherever she wants to immediately. One alleged TNA insider named BQ, who has covered TNA online for years, claims that Gail butted heads with new TNA president Carlos Silva, but she also did not get along with Ariel Schnerer. They did not like each other, and the continued backstage turmoil led both of them to give Silva an ultimatum. And so he had to pick a side, one or the other. And instead of picking a side, he fired them both. Which, honestly, is not an unreasonable way to handle things. Like, if you have a dispute between two people, and it's clear they cannot coexist, or you've got pros and cons with both of them, instead of showing favoritism towards one side or the other, getting rid of them both and eliminating the problem altogether, it's not LOL TNA, it's a business decision that I can kind of understand. Gail posted the following message on her Instagram. I just wanted to say thank you to the fans, friends, and especially my peers for all the support that you have given me over the last few days. I've received such an enormous amount of love, and it really has helped process this change for me. More than anything, I'm grateful for all the years and opportunities that I was given to help build something I always dreamed of. The Knockouts division is and will always be my heart and all the women who were a part of it. Thanks to the incredibly hardworking and passionate TNA talent and crew that I have had the pleasure of working with, this will not end my passion or my love for wrestling, and this is not the end of Gail Kim in the wrestling world. You don't put in 17 years in one company and stop when you are this passionate. I look forward to sharing my journey, and I'm taking some time for myself and prepare for what's ahead. Looking forward to the future. And one last thought, more women in leadership roles, not less. You know, it goes without saying, she would be an asset to any promotion that scoops her up. WWE and AEW both should already be reaching out to her, and I don't think it's going to be very long before we hear about her signing a deal with somebody. The question, though, has come up to me about whether this is a sign that Anthem is preparing to sell TNA to WWE. Are these moves being made to cut costs ahead of selling the company? And there were a lot of signs with WWE years ago that they were looking to cut costs and tidy things up for a possible sale. I talked about that a lot on the podcast, and eventually the Endeavor deal happened. And it wasn't an immediate thing. I mean, there were moves that were being made when Vince McMahon first brought Nick Khan in, which would have been 2020. And over a 2 or 3 year period, we would hear stories about, they're trying to kind of clean up the books and get some costs, off the books. And there were a lot of people who looked at that and said, this might be a sign that they're looking to sell. And then sure enough, eventually they did, but it wasn't like it was an overnight thing. In this case, I don't see this as any kind of sign that they're looking to sell to WWE, right? Not in the immediate future. I think we need to pump the brakes here. Why would WWE want to buy TNA right now? Why would they even want to? All right, let's think about that. Well, it only makes sense if the idea is not to continue running it as a separate entity, but to acquire the video library and acquire all of their international distribution deals, of which TNA has many. I can see those being of value to them. Obviously, the library would be of value to them. They could easily monetize that. We've already got the WWE vault and the WCW vault on YouTube. We're probably going to get an ECW vault at some point. And they could just throw up a TNA vault channel and they can rake in ad money from that and make money that way. Outside of that, I don't know why they would even bother. It was only a couple of months ago they issued a press release announcing a multi-year partnership with TNA. Selling the company is not an overnight thing. If they had any intention to buy the company, I don't think they would have announced a multi-year partnership with them. But why would they? Why buy it and run it as a separate entity? All right, that's why Tony Khan went and bought Ring of Honor. Had he not done that, WWE would have bought the bones of ROH. They would have picked off, whatever they wanted as far as the trademarks and the video library. So many of their guys came through Ring of Honor. There's going to be a guy in the Night 1 WrestleMania main event who was in Ring of Honor and a world champion there. And then they would have taken it and put it on the shelf. They weren't going to run it as a separate entity. Or if anything, maybe we would have ROH on Tubi instead of Evolve. But that would be it, right? So Tony Khan's like, no, he loved Ring of Honor. He had a passion for Ring of Honor. He swept in and he bought the company and he's been trying to run it as a separate entity ever since. But there's no benefit in that to WWE doing that with TNA. They have NXT, they have Evolve, they have LFG, they have all of these things already. They don't need another division to add to their developmental system. They have a good thing going as it is, where they can send some of their less experienced talent to get more reps, and they can have a pipeline to new talent so that after they're done in TNA, they bring them into WWE. And none of this costs them a thing. It's like outsourcing a branch of their developmental to somebody else and letting them pay the talent. All without the costs and overhead that are involved in keeping TNA alive as its own brand. So no, I don't think they're preparing to sell to WWE. I can't rule it out and say it'll never happen, right? A year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, anything's possible. But no, I don't think these moves were made with a sale in mind. If Gail Kim was butting heads with their executive producer and it was easier in their mind to just get rid of both of them, then in their view, so be it. And for all the other people that are leaving, they are bringing in new people to replace most, if not all of them. It sounds to me like typical corporate restructuring. But losing someone like Gail Kim is a big loss for them. And their loss is going to be somebody else's gain.